everything that today exists will be replaced with AI, like including the physical spaces that we stay in, right?
Are able to look at different kinds of data and put it together and make sense of it in something called the graph or ontology. You can do lots of stuff with it. That was the core idea of Palantir. The impact of automation through co-pilots, through agents, through AI is going to be very, 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 very profound.
As a center of innovation, how do you justify time spent?
Coming back to Bangalore, I would say I'm extremely bullish about the technical founder ecosystem here. I see the ecosystem now, having done a lot of enterprise SaaS and some vertical SaaS, graduating into AI-enabled applications more.
Any incremental time that we spend in India comes at the expense of perhaps like opportunity cost of, let's say, time spent in the US.
In terms of my time, I think we are lucky to have amazing deal flow in San Francisco.
These AI buyout firms will have a very tough challenge on the culture side. Do you have a thought around that?
Changing culture is harder than writing code, man. So when you go do buyouts, you have to choose the size carefully and you have to make sure forward-facing founders of those companies stay with you.
What can venture investors in India do?
India is becoming kind of a multimodal economy and there's
100%.
money to be made in all of this stuff. And that's going to be probably a very strong secular inflection over the next 2025.
Hello. Before we get started with this episode, I quickly wanted to share that we are now a part of
01 Network by Zerodha.
Thank you so much for watching. Welcome to the Indian Silicon Valley podcast. I'm your host, Jivraj, and today I have with me an extremely special guest. The man in front of me is an investor in the Bay Area. He's an Indian who studied for the longest time and completed his undergraduate education in India, but went to Yale to pursue his PhD. Worked for about 15-20 years in highly technical, deep organizations like Yahoo, Oracle, LinkedIn, led engineering teams there, and is now a partner at a fund called 8VC, which is started by the Palantir co-founder in the Bay Area. He's been with the firm for about 8-9 years now, has led some incredible investments, and he's at the frontier technology of investing at the intersection of frontier tech in the Bay Area. He's now in Bangalore and we're doing this here. He's a Calcutta boy, which is something that I really loved. Join me in welcoming Bhaskar Ghosh, who's a partner at 8VC. Thank you so much, Bhaskar, for joining me today.
Jivraj, thanks so much. It's a very emotional thing to be hosted by somebody from my hometown, Kolkata,
Yes.
and we just met, but we felt this bond. I'm so thankful for you having me here.
And that's so kind of you. And BG, as you are called, we will refer you to as that. You're an incredible person. I mean, in the brief period that we met in the Bay Area, your kindness and humility showed. And everybody that I met in the 2 weeks that I was there spoke about you very highly. So I'm glad that we get a chance to do this. Where I want to start is, you've had a very non-traditional journey to venture capital, even in the Bay Area. It's not like a exited founder or a career venture investor. You have deep technical expertise that you've built over a period of time. By working in organizations like, Yahoo, LinkedIn, etc. And you were deeply academic before you did that. Maybe talk to us as we sort of get started as to how that journey's played out, right? Like, where are you today and how did you get there? And then we'll go into a bunch of interesting things through the conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, mine is a non-standard journey. I think I went to the US because I loved computer science. I loved algorithms. I was lucky to do a PhD in a great department, Yale. Worked on, actually, funnily enough, I want to say this, worked on, parallel matrix algorithms in something called level 3 BLAS, which now forms the base of the NVIDIA offering. So a lot of this stuff in AI that works now is because, more than a couple of decades ago, we worked on this, matrix algorithms on highly parallel machines in these subroutines. Never mind. So that's like a historical point that things come full circle. So from Yale, I had to choose between academia and Silicon Valley. And at my advisors, I was actually going to go become a professor somewhere. But at my advisors, amazing, he knew me better than I knew myself. My advisor was actually an advisor to somebody named Richard Feynman after his PhD. He was Feynman's theorem prover at Caltech. So that's a whole podcast I can do about one of my greatest mentors, Martin, who was my PhD advisor. I went west and was lucky to work at the foundational companies of the Bay Area. I was early at Oracle. I was early at Yahoo. I was very early at LinkedIn. And, was always lucky to work with smarter people than me. And always lucky to work on really hard technical problems. But more than the technical problems, I didn't realize then I was lucky to work on foundational products which changed the course of industry. If you look at the 3 companies I mentioned, whether it is core databases which run most of the world, or the greatest consumer internet company ever. Okay, first Yahoo, which I have tremendous loyalty towards, and then essentially the first real social network company even before Facebook, which is LinkedIn, which still is formidable. I think being in these companies was a foundational part of my journey and has ultimately informed what sort of a venture capitalist I am. So, I have serious confirmation biases around knowing things technically, knowing things from the product side, around gauging people's culture as a team, as a founder, as an individual contributor, but as a leader also. And also I was lucky to build product and infrastructure in companies which were exploding because there was a market pull. So this confluence of tech, culture, initiative, leadership principles, and yet building products in an area that's expanding, which I couldn't really articulate in my journey in the first half of my career, has probably informed how I've become an investor and how I work with entrepreneurs. That's probably an interesting point to make. But yeah.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for that background. I think that helps us with a lot of context as we go further. I think the objective in the next 60 minutes for me is that if an Indian founder is watching you today, over the course of the next 60 minutes, they can understand what's happening in AI. How are you looking at founders? Your vantage point by being on ground in the Bay Area amidst one of the most important sort of technical innovations of our time, right? What is that reality that we are not privy to? So I want to decode that, right? That's the one line. How we want to get there maybe is, it'll be interesting to understand from you. You've seen these different shifts, right? Like you've seen the internet wave, you've seen the cloud wave, you've seen the data wave, you're now seeing AI, right? Talk to us about where we are. Like, I mean, I know that's very general, but what specifically are you seeing? Like, where is technology headed?
Yeah. I think what we are seeing with the maturity of AI and with foundation models like LLMs is, again, generational. But I think it's important to keep a little bit of perspective. Firstly, let's approach it as a founder. Let's approach it as an investor.
Yeah.
First, and technology is second. So Bay Area, if you're in Silicon Valley in the Bay Area, you do have a technology first lens because it's tech which is then creating products and even social movements like social media and cell phones like Apple, which are changing people's habit.
Yeah.
But the core is about building deeply technical products. Right. So naturally paying close attention to, almost enjoying and keeping abreast of technology is an important part. That culture is unchanging in the Bay Area. You have to be a curious person about tech. You have to understand how it works. You have to enjoy tinkering with it. You have to try to understand where it's going. But it's also important to keep in mind from a founder perspective or an investor perspective that few things haven't changed. If you want to go build a business, you want to go build a product, it's important who the founding team is. It's important what their culture is. It's important what their domain expertise is. And as some of my mentors have said, building a startup is like chewing glass and jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. I'm paraphrasing, right? So I think founder DNA remains really important in the context of technology revolutions that's happening. And a few other things about founding teams is founding teams which are very good tend to have very good what I call learning loops. They're able to revisit their priors. They're able to wake up in the morning from a previous day which didn't go well and think about what went right, what went wrong, and what can you learn from it. I was lucky to work very closely with at least 2 world-class founders. I would say first was Reid Hoffman, who was my mentor and boss at LinkedIn, and watched him operate very closely. And then second, my boss Tim Chen and NerdWallet. They are both unique human beings. And I would say founders who have learning loops and resilience are the most important traits in a way. You need domain expertise, but if you don't have learning loops and able to revisit your own priors, that ability and the ability to be persistent, it's kind of hard to. I think that hasn't changed independent of the AI wave.
Sure.
The second part is I think AI now entering consumer usage and AI entering enterprise is making us revisit the thesis around even software itself. So that is kind of new. And right now, I think we are probably overstating how much of it will work.
Okay.
I'm probably, I've gone through at least 4 cycles.
Right.
So I think adoption, new technologies always do some things well, but they create new opportunities and
Of
problems.
course.
So
Absolutely.
it's important as we look at this, what I call sawtooth. So technology things, you can think of it as a sawtooth. Things will grow, things will go down. It's important to ask a question about technology that we ask at ADVC, which is why now? If you have this technology available, what can you do today that you couldn't do yesterday? So
Sure.
if you start asking a question about the usability, why now of technology, it helps you prismatically. So that's something that's unique. Anyway,
Sure.
I'll stop now.
Yeah.
Why don't you guide me on? Yeah.
No, I mean, just quickly double click me on that and maybe closing the loop on like just higher context. I mean, how is this wave different than the others, right? Like, so if you had to make a parallel of what it was like during the internet wave or the cloud wave, or software, right? Like, because I think Mark Anderson on a current, like, sort of recent podcast said, right? Like, he's reimagining everything, right? And the bull case is that everything that today exists will be replaced with AI, like, including like physical, sort of like the physical spaces that we stay in, right? So what's the bull case in your opinion? You just also said that some of it is overstated. Just paint us a picture. If a founder today is watching and they want to build for the next 5 years without being too specific about these are the things that will change, like what is the bull case with where we are today?
I would say that's stating it at a very, very high level.
Very
I don't
high
know if
level.
it's a bull or bear case. I think there will be concentric circles of profound change.
Okay.
And I would say one of the most important changes that is happening is in the nature of what software is and how it's built.
Okay.
That's something to think about. There are profound consequences there. And we can go into that
Right.
part. I would say generally life inside an enterprise and life inside a consumer's behavior is going to change dramatically. In a way, I feel life inside the enterprise might change even more. But let's just leave it at that.
Sure.
I want to bring up a very kind of an India-specific example,
Yes.
which is a why now. And if you look at a blog post that came out of ADVC in December, I think, if you look at the history of Palantir, which the founder of ADVC, Joe, co-founded, Palantir paid deep attention to what we call data ontologies. That if you go into an enterprise, if you are able to look at different kinds of data and put it together and make sense of it in something called a graph or an ontology, you can do lots of stuff with it. That was the core idea of Palantir, that you can enable workflows from it. What has happened now is AI, generative AI with LLMs, which can do at least 2 things very well, which is it can make sense of unstructured data, and it can help you automate very complex workflows which might have a lot of reasoning in them. What is happening, which is particularly relevant to India, I think, is in the area of services and BPO. So that impact around process automation, things that, say, the promise of RPA did not deliver well on. The impact of automation through co-pilots, through agents, through AI, in the context of data, in the context of processes, in the context of workflows, in the context of customer interactions, is going to be very, 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 very profound. So you're talking about a massive, I don't know, $2.2 trillion industry in the context of India. If you look at the primary and secondary economy, there is opportunity for huge disruption. So is that a bull case or bear case? I don't know. I think something that a lot of us technologists turned investors, turned builders, because as you know, I also incubate companies.
Right.
We should pay special attention to anything around services, anything around BPO, whether it is technology or whether it is non-technology. It turns out it's also one of the main thesis areas that ADVC works on, where we are both where we're investing in companies as well as incubating.
Sure.
I would say that bull plus bear case is extremely profound, and we should also be aware that it affects the technical employment side, it affects employment side, retraining side.
Sure.
So there's a lot of opportunity there as AI comes into the services side. I'm giving a very specific example that bears attention sitting from the Bangalore vantage point.
Fair. No, that's super interesting. Maybe now if you had to go specific, right? Like, let's talk about your style of investing. But before we get there, your interest in India, right? Like as a fund manager or as an investor in a US fund, right, where a lot of the innovation is happening, how do you look at India as a center of innovation? How do you justify time spent? How much of time do you spend? And what is the differential that you're seeing? And then maybe we'll go into styles of investing. How do you like founders? What are the portfolio winners, etc.?
Why don't I talk a little bit about 8VC to kind
Yes,
of
please.
contextualize
Yeah.
this question? So, I've been a partner there for 7 years. This is my 8th year as a partner. I came in accidentally to actually incubate companies and not to invest. And through a bit of determination and persistence, became an investing partner and started the enterprise infrastructure practice there. And the fund now and our firm has grown a lot. We manage about 7 billion. This is our 6th fund. It's about 1 billion strong. We mostly do incubations, which happy to talk about. We do seeds and A's. That's our sweet spot. 25% of the fund goes into incubations. So the nature of our firm, the nature of this team is highly entrepreneurial ourselves. We focus on operation stuff. We focus on technology. We like to have domain experts in our team. We like to think about why now, about what should we start on our own. And that the way we invest in seeds and A's is an extension of that. We try to think as founders and builders. In terms of the firm, we are a multi-vertical firm. There's a strong defense practice. There's a strong health IT, bio IT practice. There's a strong supply chain logistics practice. Everything else is enterprise. Now, whether it's verticalized, horizontal, infrastructure, AI-enabled applications, AI-enabled services, that's about 40% of the fund. I started coming to now, rolling forward to the question about India. I started coming back to India. By the way, the India context is a bit more context. Sorry.
Yeah.
I had very good teams here during my LinkedIn and Yahoo days. So that's a previous generation. But I was very proud of the quality and the depth of teams we had during our Yahoo and LinkedIn times here. And we have kept in touch with many of the old timers. So they're my old friends. I see them every time I come. Some of them have become VCs also.
Yeah.
India, I started visiting India again intensively from 2017. My first year at 8VC is because we wanted to build more and more engineering teams for our portfolio companies here. So that has turned out to be massively true. We probably have 30 of our companies with really large engineering teams in Bangalore, Chennai, Pune also. So, Pune has turned out to be the next big center outside of Bangalore. So my initial intent was to get to know the tech ecosystem while making friends with the VC ecosystem. And also, start looking at founders who were building stuff. At that time, I would say SaaS was the biggest theme, enterprise SaaS. There were great companies like Freshworks, like Zoho coming out of here. And, that was the reason I came here, to get into the technical circuit, to meet with the technical founders. And I ended up doing a bunch of seed investments here and a fairly large Series A and Series B investment in a company called Rocket Lane, which we are really proud of, which is based out of Chennai. And that kind of got me involved, became friends with all the VCs. I'm an LP in many of the funds. So we'll talk about Bangalore in a bit more depth, but 8VC's approach was engineering first, technical founders second, deals third.
Sure.
And that has stayed true. I think we are accidental investors here. I probably write a small check every year. Our last check into the ecosystem was a design automation company called Thesis with a Y, which came out of Nutanix, my old friend's company.
Yeah.
And we have, invested in the ex-founder of Ola. We have invested in this company called Rephrase, which was out of Bangalore, got sold to Adobe. So we have our investments in highly technical founders, Rocket Lane being the biggest. Coming back to Bangalore, I would say I'm extremely bullish about the technical founder ecosystem here. I see the ecosystem now, having done a lot of enterprise SaaS and some vertical SaaS, graduating into AI-enabled applications more. So that's one big change I've seen. The other big change I've seen now is there's a much stronger focus on go-to-market. Founders who are raising pre-seeds and seeds, at least one of them, is very early in the life cycle trying to move to the Bay Area.
Yeah.
So I would say that's actually a very strong point. Now, there's a flip side to it. When very strong founders end up spending more time in the Bay Area, there is an aspect of brain drain that you might actually argue about. On the other hand, I think it's optimizing for overall success of the Bangalore ecosystem, because to build in India and sell in the US, you have to crack go-to-market.
Yeah.
And the act of selling in every country and culture is different.
Yeah.
Building go-to-market and sales teams in the USA is different from building it in India. So I would say those are some of the graduations I'm seeing. During this trip, I'm probably only meeting AI people. We are doing a couple of big conferences. My friend Dane, who's the CTO of Cloudflare, is here with me. Really glad to be doing a bunch of stuff. I'm just immersing myself in looking at AI talent here And we see very good AI talent here with a very strong systems and data bent. And I'm personally partial to it.
Sure.
So the optimistic part is the founders are becoming much more pragmatic about the business co-founder moving to the US. Founders want to do much deeper AI-enabled applications. And if you look at the conferences we are sponsoring, founders just want to do much deeper AI work with not just the application layer, but several layers down. Those are kind of the what you call bull cases of where the talent pool here is going.
Sure. No, that's super interesting. I think just to play devil's advocate, any incremental time that you spend in India comes at the expense of perhaps like opportunity cost of, let's say, time spent in the US, right? Like, is the hope that there will be enough gems that will come out of India that you can capture? What is the ROI lens for you to spend time investing in technical talent here, doing all the great work? Like, it's great for the ecosystem. I'm trying to understand what will it take for more US VCs to do this, or people at the intersection of like maybe better tech. And if you can also on a tactical level help us understand that if I'm, let's say, building an enterprise AI today from India, where am I not going to have an advantage if I'm not in the US? Assuming I'm not, right? Just on a technical front or just how I look at teams. Like, what is the tactical difference in founders in India vis-a-vis where you are?
All right. Great questions. Let me try to slowly knock them off.
Sure.
In terms of my time, I think we are lucky to have amazing deal flow in San Francisco.
Okay.
So I think just purely from a deal perspective,
right,
I think it makes sense to be in San Francisco most of the times.
Okay.
On the other hand, we try to build at 8VC very strong technical networks. And even in the Bay Area, we've built a phenomenal net. It's a bimodal network with very young engineers, very strong AI bent. And then kind of my network, which is much more senior people in all the way up to executives. But you can think of the Bangalore ecosystem, the reason I'm spending time here, as something about creating unfair advantages. At 8VC, we ask two questions. Why now? And if you do something, what's your unfair advantage? I think venture VC builders like me, I think of myself as a builder first, VC second, but however, we could argue about it. That's kind of how I think of myself. You have to create unfair advantages in technical network. And so my visitation to Bangalore is about creating unfair advantages a little way in the future around technical networks.
Sure.
I think there is an eager, hungry, and highly skilled junior to mid-level to even quite senior people sitting here where we'll be able to put together teams here to do fairly deep stuff in kind of startups which straddle the India and US. Startups don't even have to be, for us, don't have to be started in Bangalore all the time. They could be started in the Bay Area. But I'm envisioning a future where a business founder starts a company out of San Francisco, but the CTO co-founder is sitting here. It's not easy to do as a script, but for the ones who can do it, it's amazing. Because you want a head of India development, you want it small, you want people who want to be in Bangalore and not move there. So to me, it's important for some of us VCs who want to create talent networks to absolutely have a fit. Number one. As a fund, I have reached the conclusion that if you really want to play in India, you have to have an India fund. You cannot do it. You can have one fund, which can be demarcated into a US part and India part, but you have to have capital allocated for the India ecosystem, which has two modes. One is build in India, sell in the US. That we do already. Some of the funds do that more in terms of competing. I do it less. I probably have an unfair advantage about knowing Indian founders in the Bay Area, and you were visiting. You probably have a sense of that. But you have to have a team here. You have to know the ecosystem. You have to communicate to the ecosystem that you're not here today, gone tomorrow. That means you have to hire senior people. You have to have a partner here. You have to do stuff here. You have to be humble. You have to compete. Okay, so that's for the India-US deals. The other
is that on the card for you?
It is likely we have, but we haven't pulled the trigger yet. Which brings me to an important second point. I am of the opinion that given the state of IPOs in the US market, just doing build in India, sell in the US is very hard for a fund. So if you look at small funds, and I'm an LP in many small funds here, all of the funds I'm an LP in all started with that thesis. Now the GPs are spending 2 weeks a month in the Bay Area, New York.
Yeah.
So I think it is not economically sustainable around scale to only run funds which do build in India, sell in the US.
Yeah.
You have to go after the India market for two reasons. One is the rising middle class, all of these new companies coming out, marketplaces, fintech, name it.
Yeah.
But there's also a strange new phenomenon happening around IPOs in India.
Yeah.
You can actually go public and get liquidity. So American venture funds which will succeed, to me, have to have probably a demarcated fund for India. And you absolutely do India for the US, but you have to do India for India. And that's something that has happened only in the last year when I started visiting India. So truly successful India-centric funds will do both. And from an 8VC point of view, we don't know the India market.
Sure.
So that's something that is not on the cards around building India for India companies and going IPO here. On the other hand, I'll just end with about what 8VCs and I am very interested in. I mentioned AI-enabled services and BPO.
Yeah.
Given that so much of the BPO world, whether it's tech or non-tech, software or non-software, is about India. And in fact, it's partly about India and Pune and Bangalore, but it's also, if you go to Texas, you'll notice the major CEOs of major BPO companies in the US are all sitting in Houston and Dallas.
Yeah.
And they're all Indians. This is an interesting point.
Right.
I think there's a huge opportunity in doing AI, the technical part and other stuff around AI-enabled services out of the Indian ecosystem.
Absolutely.
And I don't think enough has happened there. And I think 8VC and I will be very interested in that. So there are some of the modalities of the answer.
That's amazing. No, I think that's super, super helpful. Anything on the founder lens of tactically, like maybe giving us a relative comparable on, where is their scope for growth? Like we've always heard the narrative that, okay, Indian founders are extremely sharp, doing well in the Bay Area. But of course, there is some differential, right? So for a founder listening to you right now, who's building from India enterprise AI, what can you tell us about the Bay Area founders from a maturity lens that you perhaps witness that we can learn from?
Great question. Let's keep consumer on the side. I don't go much consumer.
We're talking enterprise.
We'll just do enterprise for now. We can even go into services if you want.
Sure.
There are two things if you do stuff in the Bay Area that you learn organically. Even as you do technical work, you end up, if you're curious, you end up learning a lot about product. What does the product look like? Who is using it? Why do they like it? What's the ROI? So product love and customer love, organically you learn really fast if you're in the right company at the right time and in the right team. That means even as a technical founder, you end up becoming a product manager. You talk to salespeople, you talk to customer success people. So you build these mental models around the product and the customer and around the diverse set of personas.
Sure.
That I'll make a point about geometry in a little while. That's my favorite thing about coming from 8VC. So technical founders in the Bay Area, having been through journeys like I have, just a average engineer who was lucky to be at Oracle, lucky to be in Yahoo Right Media, which is the greatest ad exchange of the planet. And I was lucky to be the founding head of data infrastructure at LinkedIn, which is probably one of the two greatest social network companies ever built, right? I didn't realize how much I learned about product, just being at the right place at the right time. And I knew salespeople, I knew customer success people. Bangalore founders have not had that much opportunity to learn that.
Sure.
I would say that's probably
one of the missing.
That's not about talent. It's about the ecosystem and the experience that builds your muscle memory.
Yeah. The exposure.
Second is about the business side. So if you're a business co-founder, let's say you're more product and business. If you have been in the US and you've spent even 5 years doing go-to-market, you've built these networks. So Bay Area, if you think about the Bay Area, the one thing that there's the technical talent, the product talent in the Bay Area is amazing. And product is different from tech. Product sits at the confluence of all these disciplines. Its language is different, right? Then there's the business co-founder. Business co-founders in the Bay Area, by the time they come out to do a startup, they already have built this muscle memory and networks about marketing, about sales, about the nature, because go-to-market talent is very verticalized. If you want to do networking versus data infrastructure versus AI models versus SaaS applications, it's not all the same versus open source. Go-to-market changes a lot. Suppose you do open source. That means a go-to-market founder would know how to build community bottom up of
Hmm.
technical people. That means a go-to-market founder would know how do you go from, I'm just giving you an open source example because that's, part of my
Yeah.
background from Yahoo and LinkedIn, Kafka, Data Hub,
Yeah.
everything came out of LinkedIn. But by doing this bottom-up growth hacking of a network, which is not a technical act, it's a go-to-market act, you end up seeing what adoption means,
Hmm.
what network effects mean, and how you go bottom up in a product journey, and then you go top down to start sales.
Hmm.
Again, I think those muscle memories have been harder to develop in Bangalore. Again, it's just about having this flywheel around you to learn from.
Yeah.
I'll come to another comment, which is not about India, but that we talk about, or I talk about a lot. At 8VC, when we look and when we talk to entrepreneurs, we always bring up this model of a triangle.
Yeah.
Which is all about geometry. So we talk about one vertex being product geometry, one vertex being budget geometry, and one vertex being persona geometry.
Hmm.
And the fact that I can even talk about it is because a lot of this stuff is from my past that I picked up. And we always ask, okay, you're building a product. How will it fit into the other products in that ecosystem? That's product geometry. Go to persona, you say, who's your user versus influencer versus budget? When do you have to build those relationships? And what does ROI mean for each of them? That's on the persona vertex. Then there's budget geometry, which says, how does this budget play with other budgets that the IT head or the business head is actually handling? Because there's like this cannibalization aspect, replacement aspect. Which budget is growing today? And which budget will grow tomorrow? So some of these mental models. So I talked about the why now. I talked about unfair advantage. This is another mental model that I personally spend a lot of time with founders about. And these have been helpful because language is important, mental models are important. And coming back to it, I don't think any of these thoughts are original. But being in the Bay Area, going through journeys and just learning from the networks helps us articulate abstractions better.
Yeah.
And I think coming back to life as a VC and not as a builder, I'll go full circle. You ultimately, after you write the check, you're not in charge of anything.
Yeah.
In fact, VCs become in charge when things go badly.
Yeah.
All that you can do is nudge founders and influence them a bit.
Sure.
And you can speak in abstractions. Because if a good founder has a good learning loop, they generally do very well with abstractions. They will use your abstraction. And in the limit of success is you see the founders use your language. That means you're successful.
Yeah.
And these are some of the mental models that we from 8VC bring to the table.
That's amazing. I think this is very, very helpful tactically. Like the differential is primarily because of exposure, and that's sort of, I think, shortening.
100%.
And the technical moat, I think every venture investor has some sort of advantage, and I think the technical moat and the networks have a certain advantage for you. I'd love to actually ask you, like, what can Indian VCs do better? Like, considering that, no, I mean, it comes from the fact that, okay, you've explained that, okay, you clearly defined what the proposition is. You clearly defined what you are doing to solve for it. You clearly defined how do you look at talent in India. Like, if a US venture investor is doing this, and I'm bracketing, right? Like, I'm stereotyping for the sake of the devil's advocate. What can venture investors in India do? Like, is it required that they probably have more technical knowledge? Is it required that they probably do better initiatives, efforts for technical talent to have an ecosystem? What is the answer?
I think I speak from too much confirmation bias, having come from a technology background. So let's try to generalize that a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you can know about a domain in various angles. You can know about the technology that is under the cover. You can know about the product, which is not just about the tech. It's about all the stuff we discussed. Then you can know the business side really well. Knowing some parts of the domain really well as a practitioner helps a VC a lot.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean you will become a great investor. I think it allows you to empathize and help the entrepreneurs a lot more.
Sure.
So I would love to see more people like that in India joining the venture ecosystem. So, I don't come from a finance background. I don't have an MBA. I come from a practitioner background. It so happens mine is more technical, but you can be a business practitioner, product practitioner, go-to-market practitioner. You can be a tech practitioner. I think those are very healthy changes that will help Indian VC ecosystem, number one. Number two, there's a very different mindset in in investing in the upper application and services layer versus what I call the platform layer. Infrastructure is part of that. When you go higher in the stack, in the business stack, in the tech stack, you tend to have the right mindset about seeing, revenue early. You tend to, so you think in numbers more. Whereas if you go to the bottom half of the ecosystem, the value add will be more around what moat are you creating? Which part is hard to build? Are you going to create a network effect there? What will adoption look like? Do you have to go to an enterprise and let them adopt you for a year before they say? In the second part, in the second bucket, it requires a much longer time frame. It's almost you have to become like a family office. It's hard to get ROI from this second tier, which is where I have played most of my life and as a VC. That there is this initial first 2, 3, 4 years where you have to help build the foundations, and you won't see metrics that easily.
Sure.
But you have to look for it. You have to look for not just numbers. You can find anecdotal evidence about somebody using an open source project, about somebody using it through a design partnership. This second bucket is probably, it takes time for the venture capital groups to develop that culture, because then you are investing in longer lead times. You're investing in a domain-specific tech, maybe tech founders who kind of go deep into things and you don't hear from them. I'd love to see more of those come out of India.
Got it. No, that's super helpful. So I think tactically, like maybe more operators joining funds, and that would be supportive
from
for the
any angle.
From
Doesn't
any
have to
angle.
be technical, yes.
And just maybe cycles of like venture once they mature, we'll be able to spend more time on, let's say, foundational stuff in a
And to
meaningful
be
manner.
fair, if you look at the with UPI as the consumer finance layer, whether it is not just in banking and transaction, but it's also in loans, you can see these great companies, whether it is Paytm, PhonePe, Razorpay. I think people, the VCs behind it, have been backing them for a while.
Right.
I think so. These examples are probably there within the India market. So
Sure.
I don't think the ecosystem is that far off.
100%.
So it's, right. I'm just saying it's important to call those examples into
100%.
question and illustrate them. So I don't think it's a vacuum, but it's a little bit different. It's different building for the consumer economy of India versus building for the enterprise economy of the US.
Correct.
It requires different lead times.
100%.
And different things, you have to watch out for different things during the lead times.
Yeah. I love that articulation. I think that summarizes it really well. And I think...
Which part?
The building
consumer
for India
economy,
consumer and
the enterprise
in the US,
okay,
right?
I'll try to write it down.
Yeah, I think that's worthy of a strong mention. But yeah, I mean, we're not trying to be critical of Indian VCs. I'm just trying to understand, like, from your experience, because the US is like, I mean, what, 15, 20 times the market in terms of venture deployment. I mean, maybe like more. Like Indian venture gets like 10, 15 billion a year in a good year, and the US is some like 200, 250, 300 perhaps, right? So I think...
Oh, I mean, make no mistakes, this is a highly competitive ecosystem.
Exactly.
I just want to say that this is not some village that you show up and parachute in
100%.
go away. So this is a highly competitive ecosystem. I think the hopeful part actually is India for India.
Yeah.
I think as the Indian middle class grows and disposable income grows and more money comes into the stock market and the consumer economy grows, we're going to see, and I'm sad I'm not part of that, or 8BC is not, we're going to see some massive successes here. The second part I'll call out is more and more infrastructure funds are coming, which are not, by infrastructure, I don't mean venture infrastructure, just data center, then like all of that stuff. I think India is becoming kind of a multimodal economy, and there's
100%.
money to be made in all of this stuff. And that's going to be probably a very strong secular inflection over the next 20, 25 years. So I have no sense of the other looking at India saying, why is it so small? It's actually growing extremely fast, and it's highly competitive, as it should be.
Yeah. No pessimism at all. I think, I mean, there's so much optimism on the ground, and I'm glad you mentioned India for India. That's where I'm playing. So I'm hoping that
and every time I talk to you, I learn about these companies that I don't know about. So I mean, I learn more from you than you learn from me.
So kind of you to mention. Let's maybe steer the direction towards... Actually, no, maybe we'll complete the loop on the India opportunity from perhaps services, right? Like, I think so A lot of people are talking about this. Can you help us go more tactically specific to where there might be specific opportunities? And also, again, devil's advocate there is like, why will the incumbents not be able to do this? If you can break this argument down that, okay, India's dominated services for a while. There is now an opportunity to make like leaner, stronger services companies coming from India. What does that opportunity look like? Are there specific spaces you're excited about more than the others? Are you on ground hearing about this as well? Are you on ground in the US hearing from vendors, really like companies make a shift, right? Like, are they willing to part away with a large contract from Infosys, again, like a very namesake, like hypothetical example? Are they willing to change whom they sort of contract orders to? What is the reality?
Services and BPO is a vast space. And as you correctly pointed out, India is the major player.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a very broad categorization into two. One part of the economy is services for software.
Okay.
And I'll talk about that. The other is software for services. Okay.
Yeah.
So in the first bucket, which is services for software, the end product that you're offering to people is software itself. Could be SAP consulting, could be Salesforce consulting, could be database migration, could be testing, could be MSP, could be MSSP. Keep going.
Yeah.
Could be API integration. Could be the other part, which I think is bigger. I don't know the exact ratio.
Okay.
Is the non-software side, which could be anywhere from all banking, BFSI services, could be CFO's office, could be accounting, could be audit and compliance. Could be a massive area like corporate travel, probably the biggest area on earth. That TAM is huge.
Yeah.
Could be a lot of the legal back office services that get done in India. So there is software playing there, but the outcome is not about software.
It's a service outcome.
It's a service outcome. Fair enough. And many companies, if you look at companies like Infosys, Wipro, Genpact, tend to play in both.
Right.
Maybe they play much more on the services for software side.
This is more fragmented, but even you're saying volume-wise, it could be comparable.
Maybe bigger. So I don't know the answer. That's the good one for our next podcast. We should go do math, and you can call BS on me. So the question is the following: it's a vast space. It's also a very fragmented space. While we talk about the larger players, the top 10 players a lot, I suspect there are a huge number of companies in the mid-market and even huger set of companies in the down market. I don't have the statistics ready. So now the question is, we talked about the post-Palantir thing about process mining and discovery and process ontology, remember at the beginning of the talk. This is going to become the most relevant thing in both sides. So let's take the second bucket first. What are two things that happen that is making the why now question answered for software for services? It's because in most of the workflows, in most of these industries, whether it's travel, whether it's legal, whether it's audit compliance, it's a bunch of unstructured data flowing through human beings. That's all that's happened. That's all that happens. Second thing that happens is complex interactions between human beings and workflows happens. It so happens that LLMs and Gen AI, you can automate a bunch of that stuff really, really quickly. This thesis is a very powerful thesis. The question is, how will these companies, these industries get disrupted? I would say there are multiple ways of doing it, and it leads to an interesting financial structure. The financial model is going to change. The investment structure is going to change. You can think of it as, hey, I'm going to go in and build my tech-first accounting firm, or my tech-first legal firm, my tech-first audit compliance firm, my tech-first travel firm. You can do that. What you'll find after you build that first from a SaaS perspective is, but the SaaS, the TAM for the software users there is not that high. Then you'll end up reaching the same conclusion we have all reached. You actually have to go buy some of those companies. Then you start going the roll-up route and you start doing the margin expansion route. So there is a script that is already coming from a large number of US VCs, which has already embarked on this journey, including 8VC.
Okay.
Or at least 5 others, which are 8VC hasn't yet raised a specific fund for that.
Thrive as a separate fund.
Several funds have already done it. And it's important to note that category is being defined now. It is somewhere between venture and PE.
Right.
So it's a very exciting time. Some things may not work, some things may work. It's important to note that if you go into that market, it's a hard play and proven play to say, I will just go buy really large companies and make it work. Because you want to have digital transformation there, you want to have margin expansion there. So to go into those software for services area, the non-software outcome, you have to be very judicious about two things. One is, which vertical do you want to work in? And I have my own thoughts about it. That could be great to do from India. Second is, do you go to which part of the market do you go to? Because that's where you're going to buy stuff. Do you go do roll-ups and digital transformation and margin expansion for 10 million revenue companies, 50 million, or 200 million? The nature of these companies are different.
Right.
The nature of the founders are different.
Yeah.
One common theme, there are a few common themes. Pick verticals where you don't have to do too much digital transformation. Pick verticals and market segment where you can get the CEOs and owners to stay. So that traditionally we VCs haven't done. We haven't hired like 20 operating partners for specific verticals, bought companies and run them. But I will make a guess that the pure P script is not going to work there. Because the pure P script is about reducing the denominator, which is reducing cost.
Yeah.
Margin expansion is often about increasing the numerator, which is a venture way of looking at it. I suspect a lot of us technical people coming from Bangalore and the Bay Area are going to be in that space where you need this confluence of venture thinking, tech leverage, operating principles, margin expansion to all come together. To me, that's like the most exciting thing to be in for the next 10 years. Then there's the software side.
Yes.
Software side is difficult in a different way. Because if you go and build some software, which is automation, suppose you're doing SAP consulting, then you go to 3 large SIs and say, hey, can you use my software? They're like, okay. But remember, those companies are a time and materials business model. Ultimately, as you do automation, you're asking them to become outcome-oriented business models. So are they going to cannibalize their own business model? One of my old database mentors built the most successful database BPO company out of Pune. I'm sure you know of it. So I just saw him and we talked about it. And he said, yep, profound changes are going to happen in all things data. I'm sure you know which company I'm talking about. He's such a forward-thinking guy. He's built his own AI team. And I said, but Dada, how's the cannibalization? He said, that's a great question. I haven't figured out that script there of how will the Infosys, Wipros, Accentures, Cognizants of the world, the big companies accept the change, or will it be happening from mid-market? I think the intent of the last 5 minutes of my monologue is to say all services verticals are not the same. And if you're going to go play there in any of these areas, you bring your agentic AI, you bring your tech, but you have to think very deeply about which vertical, which segment you're going to play in, because that script is going to be executed over the next 10 years. It's not about a quick fix.
Sure.
And as you can probably tell from my tone, I'm most excited about that area.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. I think this is an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for sharing. Mark, by the way, again, of A16Z on a podcast recently made the comment that these AI buyout firms will have a very tough challenge on the culture side. Do you have a thought around that?
Yeah. Meaning when we are bringing in AI and buying out? Yeah, I mean, changing culture is harder than writing code, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we have to, as I think the only thing I mentioned is when you go do buyouts, you have to choose the size carefully and you have to make sure forward-facing founders of those companies stay with you.
And that will ensure cultural migration.
Yeah, I mean, let me give you an example. One of my hot companies is a company called Tezi, which is doing recruiting workflows and automation recruiting. If you dig deep enough, I mean, there's the data part of recruiting, which is your professional graph. How do you do sourcing well? That's a data problem. But most of what any AI-enabled recruiting company like Tezi will do is it'll look at recruiting with a fine-tooth comb of workflows and say, oh, I'm going to automate this workflow with an agent each. I'll build 60 agents. But what are you doing ultimately? You're replacing a services part in an enterprise department. So, as I said, the Gen AI will make profound changes inside enterprise departments. Ignore engineering, which is a harder question, actually. How do you talk about that? But if you look at HR, you look at recruiting, you look at sales, you look at marketing. What will change is also the services workflows. Now, think about it. You have 700 recruiters in an enterprise department. You suddenly land with this AI product. Aren't you going to have to change culture there?
Yeah.
So it is not just about the BPO side.
Fair.
BPO side is harder because their business model is time and materials. But culture change will have to happen in both places.
It'll happen both.
Post AI culture, workflows, governance of enterprise departments will also be, that is a script being written. We don't know what it's going to look like. The other thing that you mentioned about operating is, I think we have to also be old timers from Silicon Valley with our own confirmation biases, have to go into the services side with a lot of thoughtfulness and humility while we move quickly. Because that part of the HCL executive team was visiting Bay Area. I had some time with the founder, with the CEO. And something that came up in her and my conversation is that, most of us don't see the senior leadership of the top 5 consulting services company in India coming there. And most of the executives of these companies are either sitting in New York, New Jersey, or in Texas.
Yeah.
So as any of us from Silicon Valley, as an investor, as a builder, as a rebuilder, as a technology provider, we go into the services. We have to go in with extreme humility and curiosity, and also define what is the art of the possible. Because you can't say that, it's going to become a product company. So that is exactly the point you were making.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right. We should not understate the difficulty. To me, there will be people coming out of Silicon Valley who will dive in, and there will be a learning journey. I think it's going to create an amazing new category of people who want to play in the middle of the space. I don't think that category of people has been created yet. I would bet it will give rise to a new class of investors, new set of firms, and a new set of operating principles and people who will actually make this happen.
Sure.
So to me, that's a really exciting journey ahead of us.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. That's a very, very strong point. And in fact, on a general level, right, like one of my questions is that we've spoken about, like, let's say you meet a founder, they're very technically strong, you like them on the technical prowess, they're doing something in services, right? Like they built a really good product. The question that will stand is, a lot of people will fit those check boxes, but what is becoming increasingly difficult is like go to market, right, in an AI world. And you see this like firsthand with a bunch of companies who also matured. Talk to us about what it means to success from that lens, right? Like what does, like, let's say 2 companies doing SAP migration, right? Like what will it need for them to win? Like partly to your point, right? Like what does it mean to gain empathy towards services companies? What does it mean to go and really sell like to like product? What approach is going to win?
I think there are 2 sides to it. Let's pick the age-old product companies in enterprise. I think for that, all the go-to-market tips, tricks, techniques are fairly well known.
Okay.
I don't think that's going to change much. What will change is, as you build AI-enabled product and AI offerings there, when you do go-to-market, I think pricing will play a huge role. A lot of the pricing stuff has to be revisited.
Yeah, which is what a lot of people are talking about as well.
Yes, and how you land in the enterprise and integrate what I call reference architecture around compliance, governance, observability, risk management for the AI-enabled offerings in pure enterprise is getting defined now. Because think of the people who are going to buy these products on the enterprise side. You come in and say, I have this magic, this agent I'm going to deploy for you. And fundamentally, LLM-based agents will have non-determinism. Now, how will a customer deploy it on their site? What if it gives wrong offers? So I think there's a lot of new stuff that's coming, and you have to think about it not as go-to-market only, but as the product offering part of go-to-market. Because part of go-to-market in the next 2-3 years in the enterprise product side will also be about evangelization. It's also going to be about changing mental models. So on the pure enterprise product side, some of it will be age-old, some of it will be new. So that's one common. Coming back to your SAP question and your services side, I'll just be upfront with you and I'll tell you, I actually don't know the answer. This is a very unique thing that we from Silicon Valley and traditional startup mentality have not done. We have never built a $5 billion company selling to SIs. Hasn't happened, right?
Right.
So in a way, my suspicion is, so I have now, we have invested in an MSP, AI-enabled and managed service ID provider, which is software for software. So it's services for software, right? In that case, I think things are moving fairly quickly. In that case, people who are doing it, at least 5 funds are doing it. I know of at least 5 companies doing exactly the same thing. Maybe they'll pick slightly different segments of the MSPs. They basically figured out, I have to figure this automation stuff out of MSPs, which is primarily around, ticket resolution for MSPs, right? This is for IT admins. And I have to do this sort of automation. So the tech answers are fairly standard. You now have to quickly go buy stuff at a fair enough multiple of EBITDA and figure out that you can run that company.
Sure.
So I think some parts of software are getting, but the MSP space, remember, is fragmented enough. It's not owned by 5 companies that you can play that game.
Sure.
Your question is harder because of 2 reasons. 2 reasons. If you take Salesforce, SAP, ServiceNow, Workday, kind of the top SaaS companies, the ecosystem has been built around those, all the ecosystem around services and consulting ultimately are still leading to the same SaaS company.
Right.
So there's an added complexity there about go-to-market as to, is it ultimately going to be an acquisition by the parent company?
Yeah.
Is it going to be
Or
an
the
acquisition
SI.
by the SI? Or you'll displace the SI and build an SI yourself?
Yeah.
So as I said at the beginning of this conversation, I don't know the answer.
Fair.
But you have to try it out and go build stuff. That's kind of the selling value.
Got it. No. Thank you so much. I think that's very helpful. That was also a greedy question on my part. I'm evaluating a SAP migration company right now.
Very important problem.
Yeah.
Very important problem. Very high time.
Yeah. No, I think, but this is super helpful. We've spoken about a bunch of things, but hopefully I think this line of questioning and answers helps future builders understand sort of, let's say, the AI piece, how you look at companies, the India sort of direction. Let's maybe get to your venture lens on a deeper level, right? So if you can spend some time on understanding what's your track record look like in the last 7-8 years. It's prolific. We don't get to hear from investors with the kind of experience you have often. Maybe help us understand some of your winners, maybe some misses as well. What does that look like? We can also talk about our friend who sort of introduced us, Sarosh or Spot Nana. He made this happen. So big shout to him actually.
Shout out to Sarosh.
Yes.
Hey, Sarosh.
But just generally, so the point of view for the next 5-10 minutes could be that you spent 8 years in investing in one of the top tier firms in the Valley. How does that look like? What have been your learnings from investing, mental models and frameworks that you have built over a period of time?
So before I get to investments, just want to say I'm proud to have incubated 3 companies.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yes,
a co-founder incubator.
Please include the incubation.
That's a very, very specific thing about 8VC that we are so proud of. 25% of the fund goes into incubation, what we call build.
Yeah.
That governs the culture of the firm because you
25% of the firm
of the fund. Every fund goes in.
Wow.
So we are now starting so many companies that we haven't even announced.
Yeah.
So
I'm sorry. Maybe take a step back and like just 2 minutes spent on like why incubation is a sort of like why is it in the culture, and in India it's uncommon, right? I'd love to understand your thought process.
Full credit to Joe, who's the founder of the firm. Joe is the most prolific serial entrepreneur. I mean, he did Palantir, then he did in some order Adapar, then he did OpenGov. I mean, in fact, the time where he and I built a relationship is when I came in post my NerdWallet days as an advisor to Adapar and OpenGov. That's how we got to know each other. I helped fix some things of the company. We sold OpenGov last year for a couple of billion to Cox. Adapar will probably, become a very famous large company. So there is a serial build mentality the founder of 8VC brings with him. I think it's pretty simple. It's also about the ability and the passion to look at what's going to change, and also a very highly technical lens, very high lens in asking why now, what is possible now in this domain. See, the moment you go that deep into why now and its technology or its product, you inevitably start thinking as a founder. So that psychological and cultural component of 8VC is what is most important to call out.
Sure.
That is the beating heart. Then we have all these areas. We have incubated incredible companies in defense. We're investors in Anduril. We've incubated Epirus. We incubated Saronic, which are incredible companies. Same in health IT, bio IT. Same now in supply chain and logistics. We haven't announced our incubations. And I have been lucky to do 3 incubations. During COVID, Joe and I co-founded a company called Opto, which is in the in the alternate asset democracy space, right? And then I was lucky to help my friend GK Ganesh Krishnan, who was the CISO of Yahoo, LinkedIn, and Atlassian, who was actually the first head of LinkedIn India to start a cyber company called Anzena, which is doing very well, very proud of, around user posture management for security. Then, my old friend Venkatesh came into 8BC, was old time, one of the gurus of Hadoop from Yahoo, and then the inventor of Apache Atlas, which the Bangalore company Atlan is based on. That was invented by the two co-founders that we helped incubate a company called Spotonics in the analytics space. So that has helped me a lot. I think trying to incubate companies makes you have two jobs at the same time, which is hard. But, it humbles you. Like for Opto, I had to go hire the first 9 or 10 engineers myself. I had to do technical interviews again. I had to replace myself as who's going to become the next CTO. Anzena, I've been working much more on the go-to-market side because I'm not a cyber guy. So I just want to call that out, that's a very important beating heart of the firm, and for me that I'm really proud of. In terms of some of my interesting companies, I would call out a bunch. I would say Acryl, which is now known as Data Hub, is one of our great companies, which came out of LinkedIn as an open source project called Data Hub, which forms the metadata plane of the enterprise on which you build governance, you build search and discovery, blah, blah. It's growing very fast, landing massive deals.
Maybe how we can do this is also like maybe talk about 1 or 2 examples, but like go deep in knowing like when you met them, what was the reaction? When you decided to invest, what was it like, and how the trajectories played out. I think that would be really helpful from a learning lens.
Yes. So I would say in my case, a large fraction of my large investments are founders I have known in the past who have worked for me, sometimes even reported to me, or I've written code with. So let's say Acryl, now known as Data Hub, the two amazing founders, Shashank and Swaroop, worked with me at Yahoo, then worked with me at LinkedIn, and they, became the gods of LinkedIn and god of Airbnb. Swaroop became the head of data and search at Airbnb. Shashank became head of data at LinkedIn, and the project Data Hub was started at LinkedIn and came out, and I was lucky to put them together as co-founders. So I would say long relationship. We've been in the trenches together. And a lot of our vision around why the metadata plane is the next big thing in enterprises, we had thought about it way back. So that goes way back. Also, it's an open source company. So a lot of confidence. So that's number one. Let's look at our distributed Postgres company called Yugabyte. Kannan and I wrote code together at Oracle in the RDBMS kernel. So our paths would cross. He and Karthik went to Facebook, did great things there. And then, when time came, I led the B in Yugabyte. So that's again a long relationship in a very specific area like database kernels, distributed databases that all of us had worked on. So it's same technical background, same technical community, and having worked together. Spotnana as a company I'm really proud of. It's a totally unique thing. Sarosh came to me through a friend, Arjun of Floodgate, and I was just struck by his vision. Guy had done only travel right from his college days. I had never met anybody like that. And he was just like, most of travel doesn't work. We have rebuilt the text. And then with his co-founder, we spent a lot of time. In fact, we met at the Cricket World Cup in 2019 in London.
Really?
Sarosh has brought his entire WTMC team. And he invited me to WTMC dinner because his top performers were being invited to go to watch the World Cup semifinals at Manchester where India lost. Never mind. So, I would say travel, cloud tech, and cricket were our things. So I would say deep personal bond was built. And to be fair, that was out of nowhere. I just decided that Sarosh is such an exceptional entrepreneur. And, he kind of pulled me in and allowed me to think with him and his co-founder and his network about what should the travel tech stack, which is API first, cloud first, data first, look like. It's a very complicated, incredibly complicated piece of technical work. My confirmation bias is I always get attracted to something which will have a deep technical mode. Spotnana was about the TAM and about the technical mode, and will be very hard to build. The company is doing exceptionally well. And then if you look at a company like Nile, it's a different journey. So Nile is doing networking as a pure SaaS service. So pure software play. Well, there is a device also. Well, guess who the founders are? The founders are John Chambers, ex-CEO of Cisco, and Pankaj Patel, ex-CTO of Cisco. What was the coincidence? Pankaj and I were recruited as advisors to OpenGov in summer of 2016. Joe invited me in, and Mark Andreessen invited John Chambers invited Pankaj in. We met there at the OpenGov office as the two advisors. So I looked at him and I said, what am I doing here? How can I be an advisor? I just want to learn from you. And, Pankaj became my mentor. 3 months later, he said, you can do this job better than me, and basically left me as the only advisor. So we became very close friends. We started investing together. My first Series A was in a company called Usher, which is one of Pankaj's invested company. So I think the common theme there is, I've been lucky to build relationships quickly or over a period of time with some of these companies. So, Nile is an amazing company now, growing extremely fast. We have raised a ton of money. It's doing some great things that we can talk about in a whole podcast. And Pankaj is just, these are two domain experts, right? They built Cisco.
Yeah.
So now they're trying to build something that will be the next gen of Cisco, let's put it that way. I would say, which companies did we mention? We mentioned DataHub, we mentioned SpotNana, we mentioned Nile, we mentioned Yugabyte. Now coming to my favorite India company. Rocket Lane.
Yes.
Rocket Lane, I'm lucky because my friend Samir from Nexus, it's a dear friend of mine, Nexus Ventures in Bangalore, who's now doing his own fund, said, hey, you got to look at this guy. This guy is amazing. This guy's name's Sri. He came out of Freshworks, and, it's a really funny story about how the deal happened. And I ended up leading the A, and then we co-led
What's the
B.
story?
Oh, boy. So Sri, so we have a corporate box at the 49ers Stadium, which is the 8VC box.
Yeah.
And Sri had come and spent some time a few days before that. And I couldn't really understand. He was trying to do this thing around the implementation stuff, then go into professional services. And I didn't understand it, but I could get that this guy has this quiet power about him and this aggression and this ambition, which is insane. And I had heard really good things about his co-founders who were all sitting in Chennai who I had never met. And then he comes in, this is during SaaStr. He comes in with this young team, and I meet with them and we go for dosas or something. And, they are kind of a little bit wary of me because I'm bringing all my baggage of ex-LinkedIn and all of that stuff. And I could see that they haven't dealt with somebody like me quite before. And they're also new to Silicon Valley. And then I suddenly, I liked him so much over a dosa meal. I said, hey, do you like football? He's like, what's that? He had never been to a football game, was not interested. I said, Joe is going to be at the football game this weekend. Why don't you come? And I got the founder of DataHub, Swaroop, to drive him there. And I was late. And Sri had already spent time with my boss, Joe. And I come out of the elevator at the corporate box, and Joe is like, hey, I talked to this guy, invest in him. So Joe felt, it was interesting that Joe and I felt the same way about Sri. So it was this, it's like body processing something, not intellectually.
Yeah.
And it so happened that we had this amazing group of advisors who had come to the box. Drew Houston was there, Swaroop was there. And Sri just sat during the halftime listening to our network discuss like how Airbnb was built, discuss how Dropbox was built. And I don't know, I think it's a point, it's like this timing, it's bound to happen. And that's how he bet on us, and we bet on him. And it's been an incredible journey with Sri, and we think Rocket Lane is going to be a great company.
That's amazing. That is
so all of these are human stories of connection with so I think that's
exactly what I was
probably
thinking.
the most important thing to me.
No, I was going to double click on that. I mean, at the expense of being flattery, I think when I first met you as well, it was so kind, and you were kind, humble, open to supporting a young guy who's just landed in the Bay Area.
And from my hometown. So there is some confirmation bias there.
No, absolutely. But I've had to ask you, is there a trail? Is it conscious to say that, all of my learning of venture tells me that venture is such a human-led business. So this is very important, but I don't think it's spoken of enough. Can you do it proactively? Can you be nice to people proactively? How do you compound human connections over decades, right? Because my thinking in my head, by the way, was that I've been doing this 5 years, and you've done this 25, 30 years now, including your years of
longer as a builder than as a vendor.
Exactly. So, those things have compounded, right? Is there what's your learning on the human side of venture?
So I would say there are two parts. I think there's the unstructured EQ connection side. When you are on long journeys with somebody in the trenches, it's better to have this connection, and that cannot be faked.
Yeah.
Just want to say that part is not a transactional part, but there are times where you just won't relate to each other. to me, who enjoys being in the thick of things, I think a lot of the problem solving, you end up solving problems. You end up getting woken up at 3 a.m. All of that becomes prototypical. What matters is, do you enjoy that person's company? Are there some shared values, shared energies? You have to be open to that. And you cannot force that. You cannot accelerate that. So I have no advice there. It's a very peculiar thing. I think it's for me. The second part is more transactional. Second part is, if you are a builder and you have value add, or you know a domain, or you can make intros, you know, go to market. Even if you're going to pass on a founder, my script is that you must write them good. Writing good pass notes is more important than writing good yes notes.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my relationships have been built with founders who have passed on, including innumerable ones in Bangalore. Many of them, we took the time to write good pass notes about how deeply we thought about things. But it's the transactional part. If in the first hour you figure out you probably don't want to be in a journey together for whatever reason, but you like the founder, you think the founder is working on something important, and you have some value to add transactionally, you can make an intro, you can do a biz dev intro, you can say, hey, here's a product owner you should talk to. That part you have to do. If you do it in a very transactional way because you want something back, I think good founders will figure that out. If you do it because you have a builder mentality and you are just happy to be in a position where a founder asks you for help and you add value quickly, that's very important. I would say those are the two things. One is highly unstructured, one is highly structured.
Yeah.
And I would say it brings us back to a question you asked a while back. It's about domain expertise in VCs.
Yeah.
The second bucket is only deliverable when you have some domain expertise. Because within a meeting, you have to know, either you already know enough about the domain or you figure things out where you can add value and you can make intros, or you can tell them, go and read up this paper or this open source project.
Yeah.
I think doing that quickly, light touch, high value is very important.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think I completely agree. I think the second one.
One more thing is, I think the way I am approaching it is in a very early phase investment point of view. When you're doing growth investing, I think it's different.
Yeah.
I think you have to be in the weeds of the data room. You have to do a different set of interviews. You have to talk to customers. I think and I haven't done that enough. I just feel like as a builder myself, I feel much closer to the earlier phase stuff of doing things.
Sure.
So I think there is other chemistry and DNA you have to bring to the growth investing side, which I don't have enough profound things to say there.
No, that's fair, I think. But no, fairly acknowledge that the human sides, is it all implicit, or much of it is also trained and explicit? Do you spend time thinking about the human side and then train yourself? Is it now a developmental model, or is it just very natural to you? Have you always been this way?
I don't know if I can't answer that question. I mean, you have to have it in you already. I think the one thing to remember on the unstructured side is, as your portfolio grows, and mine has grown a lot, you don't have that much time. You don't have that much time.
Okay, fair.
Remember, time is important. That how many drinks are you going to go out with somebody that you're trying to build a bond with? So you have to be judicious in saying which founder do you want to spend time with, and through these get-togethers, your transactional side will come out, but also your chemistry will come out.
Sure.
I don't think I have learned how to do that in 15 minutes with somebody. I mean, sometimes you make bets because you know a lot about somebody from their past lives. So I think I look, there's something that I have always thought about is, I don't like run books and scripts. I hate telling a leader, a founder how to do their job.
Sure.
I hate telling a young VC or early phase VC, here's how you do the job. I think in a very kind of vague way, I can present what kind of has worked for me.
Sure.
And what kind of how I like to operate. If a script jumps out of there, you can take what looks like a script. But I find it very hard to be prescriptive about it. Sorry.
Fair enough.
So I cannot offer formulas.
Yeah. No, I think the objective here is also to not get formulas, because I don't think they exist beyond a point. But no, this is super helpful. The last thing on the, perhaps the winners and the many companies you mentioned, keeping technical talent aside, if you had to give us a framework of what is the spike in all of the founders that you invested in, that you've seen successfully build large companies, how would you summarize that? Because eventually, again, on the founder side, especially early investing, means you take so much of the decision basis who people are. have you noticed anything like technical talent aside, what is it that makes a founder successful?
Yeah, technical talent is actually not the determinant. I think two things are even more important than
Tell
technical
me.
talent. One is the domain, the market, the customer segment you're playing in. You have to know the asks of the domain. Is
Sure.
it changing? Is there customer love? What are the so you can call it the market, but
Sure.
market doesn't quite encompass that. It's kind of the domain that you're going to build and sell into.
Right. So Sarosh knowing about travel incredibly deeply
Very
exhibits that.
important. Very important. Or Kannan knowing about distributed databases users is very important. Sri knowing about professional services and implementation cycle from his Freshworks side is incredibly important. Pankaj and John Chambers knowing about networking is incredibly important.
Sure.
And that cannot be replaced. That's number one. Number two is very boring. It's the culture that you create in the first 10 employees of the company. That culture, that sense of mission, that sense of agility, that sense of we are here in the trenches, we'll do whatever it takes. Learning loops, cultural ambassadors, moving fast. All the great companies, whether it's early Oracle, early Yahoo, early Google, early Palantir, unique culture. And there are many stories if you were in the trenches. So knowing the market and the domain and feeling it and wanting to build your unique culture. Even Salesforce, if you look at the early days of Salesforce, it was a pretty fascinating culture. Netflix as well.
Sure.
All different.
Right.
But all unique and founder driven.
Yeah. No, I think that summarized it super well. This has been super great. I think I have a last segment now. This is more objective and we'll be more to the point and maybe we'll conclude with that. But I think in the last sort of hour, we have learned AI India.
Already?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I didn't realize it either. Okay. But we want to be judicious to the folks listening. So we'll conclude with a couple of quick
Hopefully
objective
you'll
questions.
condense this a lot, as I told you to.
I will. On the first bit, if you have to summarize learnings for data teams from your time at the various organizations that you spent or engineering teams, right? Let's say we change the profile of the listener and say a CTO is listening to you right now. What would you tell them?
That's a hard and very interesting question. So CTO, the founders, let's say the technical founder who's also the CTO title. I would say, I think, of course, talent and hiring and how they work together is really important in engineering. By the way, we didn't discuss the nature of change in software engineering with AI, which we won't get time. So a lot of my past models are not going to work. Remember that.
Right.
A lot of the mental models is changing because the act of software engineering itself is changing with all these copilots and the code gen. All the stuff you're using, GitHub Copilot, using Cursor, using this and that, right? Which is really profound.
Actually, that's super interesting. I might have to interrupt. Maybe we can spend a minute on that, or like how much ever time, and we'll figure out a way to get it in. But also, like, I'm curious to understand how Indian teams, let's say large organizations, right, are adopting that part of technology. Because in my experience in very brief conversations and perhaps like a discounted sample set, it's not as mainstream as, let's say, if a Microsoft like Satya is saying that 30-40% of his code is generated by AI, maybe more now. Have you had any observations on tech adoption within large organizations in India?
Large, I can't say, but my startups, Rocket Lane, just go visit them in Chennai. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're using CodeGen and Copilots in a major way.
Okay, fair.
Acryl Data Hub sitting in Mountain View. The way LLMs, Copilots have accelerated their engineering roadmap is insane. So, answer is, I suspect many of the startups here are adopting stuff very quickly.
Okay.
I don't have a sample data set about the larger non-global companies, but if you go into Google's of the world and the Facebooks of the world, or Metas of the world and Amazon, they're using it in a major way. So I think it's happening much faster than we think. But let's come back to your original question about CTO. Founder CTO always has to know about, hiring is really important. Technical hiring has become harder and harder and harder. So founder CTO has to be finding herself or himself spending 60% of time in recruiting sometimes. And it's easier said than done. So when you're the young technical founder, it creates one set of challenges. Older, experienced technical founder, CTO, it creates a different set of challenges. Having a run book there about knowing How many senior people do I have to hire? What are my unfair advantages in going to campuses? Are my old peers going to join me? CTO has to have a script that they're working on all the time. All the time. Anything I was lucky to build, whether it's Yahoo or LinkedIn, where I would say I was lucky to have a track record of consistently hiring people smarter than me. And all of them went on to become huge players in that company itself, or they left and built foundation companies. That was my passion. So I would say, in a way, technology recruiting, if you are not passionate about it, don't be a CTO. Second is ability to create very agile software engineering cultures. Today, even as cloud and open source became prevalent 10 years ago, the act of developing code became a lot easier than during our time, where we would have to build our own, write our own distributed hash tables. I mean, it already became a lot easier. You had a queuing system like Kafka. You had an open source database like Postgres. You could use Redis. You could use a cloud warehouse. Guess what? We had to go build all of this ourselves, right? So that was the previous generation. Now what's happening is, I think there's a difference in infrastructure-ish companies. If you're building an AI inference company, like, somebody in my family is working on AI infrastructure at a Berkeley startup. The nature of problems you solve there versus in the application space are different.
Sure.
Sometimes you have to operate for agility. Sometimes you have to operate for thoughtfulness. The CTO has to know which part has to be extremely agile. Fair enough. And that culture of agility, shipping fast, failing fast, learning fast, being customer first. When you're doing design partnerships, how do you react? Taking pride in being forward deployed. All of them, something that came out of Palantir, to be here. That is actually the crown jewel. So that part of culture and processes around agility is very important. Number 2. Number 3, so we talked about hiring and culture. We talked about the agility.
Yes.
Measurable agility, where you're able to measure engineering value, you're able to iterate, fix things, prioritize fast. Third thing that hits you as you go into the second phase of the company, natures of companies' problems are pendulums. Initially, it's all about design partnership, product, geometry, fast engineering iteration. Then you kind of chill, you build some stuff. The problem goes towards sales and marketing and customer support.
And then it comes back.
And then it comes back here because your product has begun, you have tech debt. So the other thing that CTOs have to plan for is what I call the platformization side. How will you do ops well? How will you do security well? How do you get your data stuff to work well? And that is not necessarily about agility only. That's about layering of the code. That's about replacing technical debt. Good CTOs tend to think about this all the time. And from the second year onwards, third year onwards, you end up doing all of them at the same time.
Sure.
So these are some of the guidance. But I hate giving guidance because the role of a CTO is so hard.
Sure.
I don't know if one script fits them all.
Yeah.
The meta theme to keep in mind is horses for courses. A CTO in an AI model company, CTO versus CTO in a data infrastructure company, CTO in a Kubernetes-like company, CTO in a sales ops application company, CTO in a healthcare services company. They're all optimizing for different things. It's very important to know what is unique. So I would say that's a meta thing.
If you had to start up today, right? Like not co-build, not incubate, not invest. If you are a founder today, what would you build?
I would do 2 things. I think one of my favorite areas that I haven't invested in is all things enterprise observability. So that is kind of in a post-Splunk Datadog world. I think that is a huge area where there will be few great companies built. So I would probably start a company in the observability area. Observability means many things.
Right.
It can mean site observability, security observability, which is what I was talking about. Then there is AI observability. Then there is data observability. I'm talking about the site-facing side, that the site ops, security ops, observability side. It's a massive area. And I think with LLMs and time series foundation models, it's going to be amazing. So love to do something like that. The bimodally opposite is something in a specific vertical of AI-enabled services.
Okay. And you won't give us that specific vertical?
No, I've already chosen the 2 that I want to work on.
Okay.
So that is, I'm going to devote probably significant time to both.
Very
and
interesting.
Either do massive checks
Or
help some founders start
co-build
the
it.
companies
Yeah.
themselves.
Incubate
I would
it.
say, yeah, I think these are different journeys, right? The observability side is my past journey,
Yeah.
but I think it's a massive time area where foundational companies will be built, and the why now question is answered by presence of LLMs and time series foundation models.
Sure.
And the second one is new. So I would say those would be my two
Got it.
areas. And no, I would not go build databases anymore. It's too hard.
Okay. If you were a student today, would you do a PhD or start a company?
This is going to make me feel sad. I would only do a PhD.
And I'm asking a man who has 22 patents. If that's what GPT says.
It's something larger than that, but that's
Okay.
fine. Oh man, yeah, you used it. Patents don't really matter, but it's fine. Refereed papers matter more.
Okay.
I would say if you work in areas where there is so much technical depth that you can only learn it in the isolated environment of a university, then it still makes sense to do a PhD. You have to pick those areas very carefully. I would say in the biosciences, areas like that, maybe in material science. If you ask me only a computer science question, only if you want to work on the internals of AI, actually work in the statistics and the models themselves, it still makes sense to do a PhD, because most of the companies are still coming out of PhD programs. I mean, the Bay
The
Area,
Stanford PhD.
where would we be without the AI groups of Berkeley and Stanford? Where would we be without the data and systems groups of Berkeley? Most of the companies wouldn't have come out.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it.
Okay.
But you have to pick that. If you don't pick areas like that, at least in computer science, I would go so far to say that you probably don't need PhDs. And that kind of hurts my own feelings, given that, I enjoyed doing my PhD and doing stuff.
Yeah.
That
Fair
was
enough.
one question.
Yeah. On the second last bit, I think founders just want hacks, right? Like it's a cluttered world with a lot of information. So if I had to ask you that, okay, the latest, the theme of the season is Cursor for X, it's voice agents, multiple of these things coming up. What is the theme of this season, or like a couple of spaces that you are excited by that Indian founders can build in, or like any founder can build in?
I'd like to say building multimodal Indic language stuff is important.
Okay.
Is it a business proposition? Is the Indian market big enough to do that? I don't know that answer.
Okay.
From a localization sovereignty perspective, I think it's important for India to build that, to have that, to have their own set of models, to have their own GPU infrastructure, to have a community of people building models for both government, people, and business use cases. Are many of them going to lead to great business outcomes? I don't know the answer. Fair enough. Remind me your question one more time.
Just like what can founders build in? Yeah. Or what's the theme of the season as per you?
I think theme of the season, I'm going to be boring and I'm going to say enterprise itself. So it's a contrarian view. Enterprise departments, whether it is in recruiting or HR or sales or marketing or finance or BizOps, we look at so many deals, it is very crowded. So the contrarian view is, if you want to do a company in any of these areas, you'd better be certain what your unfair advantages are. And something to remember is, in many of these areas, you may not have a technical advantage. Maybe you will have a data source advantage.
Sure.
Don't know the answer. Maybe you will have a distribution advantage.
But figure it out.
But you have to know that very clearly when you embark on that journey. In the pure enterprise software side, which could be verticalized or horizontal. In terms of, I would say, if I were operating from India, I'm going to say something boring. I would really look at the AI-enabled services area very, 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 very strongly, because a lot of that ecosystem exists here. You don't need AI PhDs to do that work.
Sure.
You need people to build good orchestration frameworks, good agents, good monitoring, good visibility, good data layer. I think there is immense talent in India to know that. Nice. But the additional muscle memory and network you have around services, you do not have that anywhere else in the world. To me, that's a huge unfair advantage. if you can get the culture prioritization right,
Sure.
that some sub-industries there want to disrupt things, it could be an unbeatable part of India.
Sure. Well, that's amazing. Can we talk about that miss? In
Ah,
hypothetical terms.
in hypothetical terms, yeah, I mean, we miss companies. I think one of the companies we missed was called Anysphere,
Okay.
which came out of MIT, which came to be known as Cursor. I think they were doing something fairly deep. 3 computer science graduates at MIT were doing something deep around identity and security. For whatever reason, we didn't get to the finish line, but these things happen.
Yeah, they do. This has been amazing. Thank you so much, BG, for everything. For the last question, and this is a typical one on the pod, but we usually go to a significant time at a person's life, right? So maybe when you were leaving LinkedIn, or you can choose a more specific time, but the benefit of this question is to go back in time and maybe tell yourself something, and by extension we can learn something from it. We want to leverage your hindsight for our advantage. So if you were going back to the time you were leaving LinkedIn, thinking about what's next in life, what would you go and tell yourself with all that you know today?
I will answer it in 2 pieces. Actually, while Yahoo, during the second half, so from Yahoo I went to LinkedIn. From LinkedIn I went to NerdWallet.
Yeah, NerdWallet was the more recent one before ATC.
More recent one, but
Okay.
I think both are instructive.
Sure.
I personally was doing extremely well at Yahoo in a very hard group, in an amazing group called Right Media. I was running engineering for it, while the rest of the company was actually not in good shape. So we were the market leader ahead of a tiny thing called DoubleClick, just so you know. And when Jeff Weiner came out and became CEO, and the 5-6 of us who went to LinkedIn at the same time, I'm the one who accepted the last. I was not seeing it, and I was a bit hesitant to make a jump from a very established place with a big team and doing fairly recognized work. I remember a whiteboarding session with Reid Hoffman in the Sequoia office when I had said no to them for 6 months, where he kind of helped me get to the point that it could be a recruiting business. I thought I figured it out. No, actually, he got me there. I should have thought about that much more deeply. I think it's a takeaway about where the world is headed and why a professional network deserves to exist. So I was not asking the question well enough about why does this deserve to exist and why now. So that was and I would say that was a foundational move for me, right? If I wasn't lucky to lead data infrastructure at LinkedIn, a lot of the following things wouldn't have helped. So that's one. After LinkedIn, I think I really wanted to have my own small shop. And I wanted to do consumer. It's a weird thing. And there were companies that I said no to that I'm not going to repeat to you because you will start laughing. And at least 3 companies I could have gone to.
Oh, wow.
Let's say one is a very famous ride-sharing company to run all of engineering. Never mind.
Yeah.
Let's say it's the hottest data infrastructure IPO of next year to run all of engineering. So names not to be mentioned. Again, I think it was important. That decision I made to go to NerdWallet, took me to understand a vertically integrated fintech company. We did well in some ways. We could have done better in others. We took it IPO, but it did something unique for me. It was the beginning of the culture change in San Francisco. It's when the center of gravity of startups were moving from Palo Alto to San Francisco that I did not know. And my new name of BG came because of that move. Nobody knew me as BG during my times before. And it was a vastly younger populace, younger talent, different mental models. And the talent in San Francisco was not burdened by these old companies like Oracle and Yahoo. It was a clean slate.
Sure.
I only realized that a lot of me becoming an angel investor, then a VC, is because of that San Francisco network around NerdWallet. So it's important to ask 2 questions. One is it taking me on a learning journey into a nascent ecosystem which is going to grow a lot? That was the NerdWallet move to San Francisco. And the other is, am I going to go to a company if it works, which is the LinkedIn move, that
huge.
thing deserves to exist if you execute well. So I would say those are 2, and I don't think I knew enough to make good decisions then. But for people going forward, they can ask these 2 questions.
That's amazing. That I love. I think it's the best end I could have hoped for. Like my insight is also like having a strong point of view on how the world will be, not where it is. I think that I'll take back. But this has been such a pleasure. I think an absolute pleasure, honor, and more than what I was expecting in my head. I was like, I'm going to learn so much in this, and I truly have. Thank you so much for all that you do. Not just for this podcast, but all that you're doing in India, building the technical talent loop, building the community, what you do for founders, and thank you for all the work you've done.
Yeah, let's keep building community here. You just nailed
Yes,
it. I think I
absolutely.
love doing that. I
Mhm.
think everything I'm doing in this visit is to let's keep on building a tech community here. And that's how I think Bangalore will succeed. And I work with this. And again, my, hometown boy,
Yes.
thanks so much. Your podcast is amazing. And thank you so much for allowing me to be part of it.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.